Hello! Congratulations on your interview. I'm really pleased for you. This exciting part of your next career move and your journey. So, I've decided to make this video for you just to outline a few things. Some of them you may already know, some of them may be new to you, but this is just like a framework I'd like to talk through and walk through. We can tailor the interview more specifically towards your direct needs, but this is just like a general guide to interviews. So, the majority of interviews, whether it's face to face or via Zoom or any other video, is usually between 30 and 60 minutes. And we've got briefing documents we can tell you about the semantics of setting up and what you need to do for that. But I really just wanted to focus on the structure of the interview today and basically what you need to prepare and what you need to be prepared to talk about. So the interview goes into 3 stages. So there is basically the part about you. There's basically the part about the company, and then there's the part with the questions. Now, the majority of companies tend to start with the part about them, where they talk about the company and they give you an overview about what they're looking for in the role. It would be a big mistake to assume that that's the case, and candidates that don't do any preparation before about the company, believe me, I know you might think this is shocking, but some people do no preparation. Some people even go to the interview and say, I've done no preparation because I've been too busy. That is often a really it gets you off to a bad start. The person's already thinking, well, are they interested? Are they really bothered? So if you want to give yourself the best shot at the interview, it's good to have some research, something about the company that you know. And we're going to give you some tips towards the end of this video about what that looks like. But just be aware, there's several companies that start at the very opening gambit. They'll do a bit of a chit chat and then they'll say to you, okay, what do you know about us? And they're not doing this to trip you up, although it feels like it at the time. They're actually doing this because they don't want to repeat other stuff. And maybe they're seeing how much research you've done about them. So definitely one of the questions that we need to prepare. And I will talk about that when we talk about the preparation piece later. So we've talked about the about us, and now we're going to move on to more about you and what you need to prepare to answer the about you. Now, the majority of people we're working with are technology marketing candidates. So you need to really be able to talk about the company you work for in technology marketing. You need to be able to talk about what the proposition is. Often, your company might be a company, they're a startup or scale up they're never heard of. We will probably have covered that in our interview notes, but it'd be really good for you to give a concise thing. This is what our company does. This is what products they have, and be able to outline that really, really clearly, because at the end of the day, you're a marketeer. So if you can't explain really quickly and concisely what your company does, it's a bit of a red flag in the nicest way. Then after that, it'd be good to talk about maybe be able to talk about the personas that you work on. So whether it's vertical markets or whether it's horizontal markets you focus on, maybe the size of the deals, maybe the value of the deals. What I want to be clear here is I'm not wanting you to give any information that's confidential or anything that's data-led about your company or anything that's part of their strategy. These are just generic things that anyone who did any research on your company could find out, but you need to be able to articulate very, very clearly in the interview. The other question that they're going to obviously ask, which is a question that sometimes people challenge answering, is why are you leaving? So why are you leaving is a tricky question, because it's often a really difficult one, because there's probably 3 or 4 reasons why you're leaving. I would say that the best way to answer the why are you leaving question is to answer it without any emotion. Not to say like I've been stitched up or I've been unhappy or I don't really like the people I'm working with, or any hint of they lied to me, the role was any hint of blaming. It's almost like say it aloud, or maybe say it to your partner and maybe someone in your family and say, this is my reason for leaving. Does it sound emotional to you, or does it sound like I'm blaming? The chances are you will feel like that because you're leaving or choosing to leave for a reason potentially. Or it may be that you're looking for your next career opportunity, but the more somebody probes you at interview, they might start to be able to pull out some of the negativity that you might be feeling that you might not even realise you're feeling actually until you sort of get into this interview situation and you start to talk about yourself. So it's really important to be prepared about the reasons for leaving. I personally think a really nice way to present a reason for leaving is to say that you enjoyed your time at the company that you worked with, you wish them the best, but now it's just got to a point where you are looking to move on because X, and just try to break it down into one of many categories. And it generally does fall into you're looking for career progression. There's been a restructure, there's been a change of strategy in the company. You basically feel that you're looking for more of a challenge. You've done the same job and you're bored, and the company doesn't have scope for promotion or financial instability. There's these sorts of buckets of things that are general reasons that are fairly rational and understandable. So those are good things to cover. The other two things that come up are maybe your strengths and weaknesses. They will probably not be, hopefully in this day and age, they will not be asked directly, but they may be asked badged up. And then what would somebody say about you? What would your manager say about you? What would your team say about you? What would your director or CEO say about you? How do the sales team engage with you? They may be badged in that way. It may be badged with what areas are you looking to develop on personally at the moment. And don't see that necessarily as a weakness. You can talk about I'm reading a book to improve my time management skills. Something I'm always like looking to do. I don't think it can ever be too efficient. There's always ways of answering this without presenting it in a negative way. Then the final part of the interview is the questions. So the questions that you're going to ask them about the company and about the opportunity. Now, the most important thing at this point is to ask questions that are showing interest. So positive questions that are showing interest. So what's the team structure? What's the biggest challenge that you face in the next year? What's the reason you joined with the company? What's the things you enjoy about working for the business? These are all brilliant questions. A question, I hate to say these questions because I just assume that nobody would ask this, but people sometimes do. So I'm going to just say it. Sometimes people may ask, what's the bonus scheme? What's the pension scheme? What's the working pattern? Do you work long hours? I mean, if there's something on Glassdoor, there's an issue, and you really want to address this, I would say leave it to maybe a second or third interview or down the process, or maybe signpost it in a way. But I certainly wouldn't ask it as a first question, and I wouldn't make it the part of your questioning, if at all, which would be my main part of advice not to ask. Just to point out, some companies love you to have like a two-way conversation all the way through the interview where you're chatting to each other and you're asking questions backwards and forwards, and they love it. Some companies don't. We try to give you that advice in beforehand and give the person's style, but it really does depend on the interview and probably how you gel with them and maybe how many people are in the interview. If there's more than one person doing the interview, it's probably questions at the end as a rule, but it just depends, and you'll be able to pick up and very, very quickly in the interview if you start to ask questions and you sort of sense a bit of a glare. I would just say, oh, sorry, would you prefer for me to wait at the end? And just be upfront about it. There's no rules about these things, unless they specifically said ask all the way through or ask at the end. You don't know, and you're basically setting the agenda. Now, the clever questions are ones that come about from research. So let me talk about some research that you can do and how you can build that into all three of the parts of the structure, which is them telling you about the company, you telling them about yourself, and also the questions you ask at the end. So it's great if you could go and have a look at the social media and see what social media channels they are, what they've recently posted. Has there been any changes in the company? It may be they haven't even posted. It may be that they're not very hot on social media. It may be they haven't got a corporate social media. They've got one for one of their products. It would be good to go and look at the person who you're interviewing, seeing what they have on social media, or certainly on LinkedIn. Have a look on their LinkedIn page. Have a look on their Twitter account, on their Facebook, any socials, I'd say. It's also good to Google the company, not just look on the company website. Look at any news pages. Look at any press releases or any announcements that have happened. A classic thing that people tend to do is go and look at the About Us page and then write that down, and then the person will ask them, going back to the beginning of what I was saying, is what do you know about us? And they'll go, you were set up in 1975, and they'll regurgitate that out back to the person. And this doesn't go down particularly well. It's like, okay, well, you're going for a marketing role. If you can just repeat what we've done and you can't sort of consolidate and integrate everything you've read about us, it's a little bit disappointing. So I would say have a wider view about it, of your opinion, and have more of an opinion-based thing than regurgitating back something you've read, unless obviously it's their product proposition or their tagline of what they do. The other part of research that's really good to do is also, especially if you're going for a role within marketing that involves anything to do with improving the customer journey, or a campaign or demand generation, anything where at the end of the day there's a sale and there's a customer involved in it. If you're going for one of those roles, I would say it's almost valuable to go and do the customer journey. Go in, look at the website as a customer and go, if I was a customer, and I was trying to find X product, what would I do? Where would I look? Where does it navigate? What do they do? How easy is it for me to get a demo? How easy is it for me to speak to a salesperson? How easy is the product proposition? How far do I go through? If you do that, that will give you some amazing insights that you can basically probably ask at the question at the interview. So you could ask it as, I can see from your website that it takes 7 or 8 clicks to get to a demo. Is this something you find that your customers generally do? Or you could ask a question like, what's your sales? What's the pipeline from your website, from the top of funnel through to bottom funnel, from what you're getting from your website traffic? Is that one of your key areas? Any of these questions that basically show you've looked at them, and they can say, well, actually, no, we don't. And you can say, oh, it's interesting because I did look at your website, and you could just give a little bit of feedback. I'd be careful with the feedback, that the feedback isn't negative. So it's not like a criticism. And if you really want to be cautious on this, you might say, oh, actually, I have some thoughts on that. And see if they then say, oh yes, I'd love to hear your feedback, rather than just go in with both feet, critiquing their website because it may be their pet project that they've spent ages of doing. So it's just being mindful really of people. So those are the main bits of research and how I'd weave it in. I'd also be mindful that if you've also researched something or seen that they've just implemented something or done something similar to the journey you've been through with your company, then I think that's really good when you're talking about us and about yourself. With some of the answering of the questions, then it's good that you could build that in. You could say, oh, I've noticed actually that your company is doing something similar, but we've also done this. When you're giving your experience, when they're asking. Now, I just want to be clear. I've mentioned that they are going to ask you to talk about you. What I'm not expecting you to do is to prepare a monologue for 2 to 5 minutes. And I would give a guide that at any point in the interview, if you are talking for more than 2 minutes, and you're probably talking too much. Yeah. So your answers should be for roughly 2 minutes a question. If you feel you're rambling and going on, I would also signpost and say, sorry, am I waffling? And make light of it. Just give yourself that break, give yourself that breather, break the ice a little bit. And they might go, no, this is really interesting. We'd like to hear more. And they say, well, you are a bit, and you're just basically building up rapport and also getting feedback through the interview. Don't be, if you do that and they just deadpan you and say nothing, just say, okay, I'll carry on then, and smile. So just gauge it and see what you think. So when I was asking you earlier about preparing those questions about you, they were to weave into answers. They may ask you, can you tell me something about yourself? And if they do, do the 2 minutes, a bit about the proposition, what the company does and what you've done. Don't start the bottom of your CV and say, I started my career in XYZ, because it drives people mad, because then they've seen your CV. They don't need you to verbally tell you. We want to know something that isn't on your CV, not something that we can read. So you need to be filling in the things that are between the lines. Now, The other thing now is to get the bones of answering those meaty questions in the middle. We are going to provide you with a framework and technique called the STAR technique. And this framework is going to basically give you a really good strategy of getting that 2-minute answer down really concisely. And that's basically looking at the scenario, the task, the action, and the results, and building that framework. I'm going to do a separate video explaining a bit more about the STAR technique. I've also got a handout that you can read about it as well. And I'm also going to do a separate video that's going to go into more detail about how to answer certain specific questions and what the meanings are. But I hope this general guide to preparing for an interview and the structure of the interview has been useful.